Hello, welcome to my digital Techno-Pathway. I'm going to show the different assignments, discussions, lesson plans, and presentations I've worked on this term. Each of these have taught me how to infuse indigeneity into my classroom in a respectful manner, how to interact with my students, as well as how to integrate two different cultures in the classroom. Our first assignment was My Life in a Bag, where we chose items that were of value to us that represented our background, where we're from, and our interests. For mine, I chose a basketball. I grew up playing basketball, and basketball is sort of like the center to the social life in my village, and I felt like it is very important to me. My second item was a abalone shell necklace. I'm from the West Coast, and abalone shells remind me of home. And it was also a present from my mom, so it also reminds me of my mom and gives me comfort as I am living far away from home. I felt like this assignment was really interesting and fun and sort of set the foundation for the classroom, and I got to see where people were from and make connections with the people I had similar interests and backgrounds with, and also make connections with people I didn't, because I thought it was really cool how Indigenous culture sort of varies in different places in Canada, and I got to learn about different people and what they're interested in, and I really enjoyed this assignment. The next assignment was the spiritual listening journey. For mine, I talked about my mom and the stories that she would tell me about her childhood growing up, sort of in an unstable home, where she didn't have a lot of support from her parents in anything really, and she grew up in poverty and didn't have much parental guidance in her life, but still she made the best of every situation and kept a positive attitude, treated others with kindness, and sort of didn't let her experiences and her home life damper what she did. And I feel like growing up, she always instilled in me to be kind to others and help people when you can, because you don't know what people are going through, and just being nice can go a long way in certain people's lives. The next thing was the discussion post on the Webb and Williams article, which was Factors Affecting Language and Literacy Development in Australian Aboriginal Children Considering Dialect, Culture and Health. I thought this was a really impactful article where we got to see how there was disadvantages for Aboriginal children getting integrated into mainstream education systems, where they are more used to oral teachings and hands-on learning instead of, like the Western way of teaching, like written and tests and things like that, and how often these kids are discriminated against and often aren't given the proper supports that they need within the classroom, and they speak in a different dialect, and a lot of teachers don't know how to aid students from different backgrounds. I feel there are many ways that we could combat these disadvantages simply just by keeping a positive attitude and being patient with students and taking time to learn about their different cultural backgrounds. And I feel like just by doing that, we could sort of fill in this gap where these students aren't getting the help that they need in class when they need it, and by taking time to learn about their backgrounds and culture, they could feel like their identities are appreciated and acknowledged. And I thought this was a great article. The next discussion post is the Dr. Gwen Point video, where she talks about decolonizing the education system and mindfully integrating Indigenous culture into our classrooms and veering away from colonial perspectives. In this discussion post, we talked about mindfully placing our oral traditions and stories in education, and there's many ways that we could do this that I touched on. Just doing simple things like using the language whenever we can, acknowledging whose land we are on, teaching about Indigenous laws and principles, and telling traditional stories as well as personal experiences as much as possible to give real-world examples of what we are learning. Bringing in elders and knowledge keepers into the class as much as possible to engage with students and teach about culture and history. This will create community connections, and these are authentic sources of information. Using land-based learning and lesson plans is also great in helping place our oral traditions and teachings in the classroom. The next discussion post was about discussion, instruction, and learning. We talked about how to interact with students when we're having discussions with the classroom, wait time, listening, and how to instruct these discussions with our students. I feel like it's important to encourage students to ask questions as much as possible so they stay curious, and really emphasize that there is no dumb questions, and what you're thinking could be a question that someone else has but they're too scared to ask. So by asking questions, we could sort of invoke a big classroom discussion and have people learn from each other. And yeah, the teacher could also see what the students are struggling with and the concepts that they are understanding. When students ask questions, I feel like it's important to try to answer them as, respond to them as quickly as you can, but also if you don't have the answers, say you'll get back to them. And if no one's asking questions, maybe just know that when it's time to move on to the next subject. And yeah, by encouraging our students to ask questions and being able to answer them, we'll create a relationship between our students of trust, and they could be open and honest and ask for help when they need it. The next discussion post was the Children Full of Life documentary, where we reflected on this documentary that we watched that shows Mr. Kanamori's teaching style, where he encourages his students to share their feelings and creates a strong community within his classroom where the students are there for each other and support each other, and Mr. Kanamori does the same for them and shows his compassion in many ways. He destigmatizes emotions, and yeah, I thought it was really heartwarming to see how much he cared for his students and had empathy and passion for teaching and genuinely cared. And I feel like that's something I want to integrate into my teaching, and this sort of teacher I want to be, where my students feel like they could come to me for anything and I'll be there to support them and help them and create a classroom where all the students are kind to each other and uplift each other. I thought this was a great documentary. This assignment is the medicine wheel for my medicine wheel, I chose to focus on different aspects of self and how it is important to balance these different aspects so you can have overall well-being and health. These aspects being emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual. I think the medicine wheel is a perfect example to display these different aspects, and it's just a great example for many things, and it shows the interconnectedness of everything, and yeah, it's just really great. My quote that I chose is, "The teachings and healing process is evolutionary and cynical in nature, as is the continuum of medicine wheels. It begins with the desire to understand and identify with the balance, wholeness, and interconnectedness in the wheel." I thought that was a great quote because it shows the versatility of the wheel and the different things it could represent. And yeah. This next assignment is my land-based lesson plan. For my land-based lesson plan, I wanted to take my students on a little beach walk where we would examine different species at low tide in the tidal pools, and yeah, just sort of do like a little scavenger hunt kind of species checklist and learn how to respect the environment and the different animals that we're interacting with, as well as learn about different ecosystems and how to keep those ecosystems healthy. And I feel like this was a great lesson plan where there was many possible cross-curricular connections. We have science, of course, and then we have physical activity. We're walking the beach, we're moving our bodies, as well as history, where we could learn about the history of the area. And yeah, I thought that was great. Next, we have the photographic storytelling. My first photo is a picture of me and my little cousin on the swing at our cabin in Copper Bay. At Copper Bay, we fish for sockeye, to jar, and to eat. And yeah, this is my childhood swing at my cabin, and I thought this was just a great photo. This next photo is of me and my little sisters. We have a really close relationship and are always going on little adventures with each other, and I thought this was a really cute photo and represents what's important to me. I love my family and I love my sisters. This is a photo of me and my basketball team. Basketball has always been a big part of my life, and I grew up playing basketball with this group of girls, and I made strong connections with all of them, and I still consider them to be my close friends today. And basketball is just such a big part of my life and so important to me, and so are these people. That is the end of my